All right, we're all set. You guys are up. Everybody give it up for Eric and Matt. Give some emojis. See them emojis. All right, you guys are on. Sorry about the late start, everyone.
No big. Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm Eric, and
I'm Matt.
Is our audio okay? Can you guys hear like us in each other's mics, or is it palatable? Good. All right. Sweet. All right. So we both work here at Secureworks with Trenton and Sean, who put this nice conference on for us. And today we're going to be talking about a little bit of wireless, but a lot about how corporate networks and what you can just kind of divine from the outside.
Yeah, so I'm going to translate that to English. We're going to talk about how our industry does wireless testing wrong and what we're going to sort of try to do with Secureworks Wireless to fix that problem. The first half of this is going to be a little boring and like traditional, here's Wi-Fi pen testing. The second bit is a little more interesting. Eric is reorganizing himself on the patio. I think that's for you. I can't breathe his air anymore, which makes me sad. But I think he's going to start talking.
Oh, that's way better. I was getting the double audio. Yeah.
There we go.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So Matt and I both started out here kind of as wireless testers. Initially, when we started as wireless, it was full on-site, which meant we had to travel, and both and I really like our houses, and we don't like to travel. So this was our first, basically, device that we created with a Raspberry Pi standard TP-Link adapter, which only does a little bit of the Wi-Fi segment, and this was kind of the first iteration of, hey, this is how we're going to try and do wireless testing remotely. And as you'll see going forward, this is definitely something that has ballooned into far more than I think either of us could have imagined. So just kind of throwing up what our current and what we can do for wireless. This is a standard wireless aero dump screen, which is like how you can see wireless networks and devices connected to those wireless networks. And this is just running on a standard iPhone through a Terminus app or Juice if you're using Android. Just on a simple Raspberry Pi like you guys saw before. I don't know, Matt, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, it's a part of why this matters, right? If you're walking around a place with a bunch of clear, obvious antennas and a laptop typing shit, everybody stops sort of doing what they're doing and starts looking at you, which is not anything, which is what you want to avoid in a wireless test, right? You need clients, you need people working on the network. If you're walking around with a laptop and a satellite dish coming out of your propeller hat, people are going to stop doing things. So we try to do it sort of stealthily when we do go on site. SSH client from a phone into a Pi in the backpack with a bunch of dongles.
Yeah, so you'll see pictures of that coming up here. But basically, what gives us the ability to do is just sit somewhere in a park, sit somewhere in a cafeteria, and be completely unnoticed. While in the meantime, we can either share this, screen session, TMUX session with anybody at our, anybody else at our company who's going to pen test from our backpack. And then for us, it gives us the ability to be incognito. So we can just sit there on our phones, and we're just now pretty much anybody else, that would be there, just, swiping left, swiping right, or just scrolling through an Instagram feed. And so here's an example of Matt's backpack that we used at an engagement. Matt, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so took the 5G alphas, the 2G alpha, 2.4G alphas out of the big like bulbous green case they come in, and just like 3D printed a little flat. Then have a panel on one side and a 9 dB antenna on the other. Want to make sure that if I'm going to have to de-auth people, that I can do it short and sweet, right? I don't want to run de-auths for a half hour and knock everybody off the network. That's a pain in the ass for our clients, so we try to avoid that. So we have a panel for directed de-auths, or regular snooping, right? Or the 9 dB antenna if we're just everybody within 25 feet of me in any direction needs to re-auth.
Yeah, and I mean, so this setup is stealth enough to where we've walked through, a number of our client sites. We've, walked through major theme parks. We've walked through pretty
Eric,
much
if you go to
everything
that
you
next
can imagine.
slide,
And
if you go to that next
does it
slide,
have more?
it's another backpack shot, and you can actually see the little pies.
Cool.
In there. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see those are just 10,000 milliamp hour batteries attached to a Pi, which last about a day. And really the whole point of this is not to be like, oh, look at our backpack setup, but really just to kind of identify that when we go on a client site, we're not going to be the pen tester that has, a dozen antennas kind of poking out like a porcupine.
Pushing a cart, drawing a heat map.
Being super obvious. Yeah, exactly. We're there to get creds and gain access to your wireless network, not just look cool and look like look like the hackers
Cool?
that people see in movies.
Is that the
kind of
word?
thing.
Is
Yeah,
that really the
look
word?
cool. Yeah. Cool for me, maybe not cool for Matt. And so the other part of this too is that we've gone on a number of engagements where essentially what happens is, Matt can attest to this probably more than anybody, where he's walked into a client site, no problem, with credentials in hand, already access to the network from the parking lot because, Wi-Fi extends past just a normal parking lot space. It extends, as far as a good antenna will take it.
Eric just feels bad because he did a marketing video for Secureworks where he took out the attacker in the parking lot scenario. And while he has totally done that in real life, most of the references that he was giving was from a test that he and I were both working on, where he was at his house and I was in Pennsylvania.
There was also that one where I was in Milwaukee, which is the one I was referencing. But anyways.
Oh, you mean where? Yeah. Milwaukee's nice, man. Pennsylvania. They have a beer.
Anyway, the whole point of this slide is just to show that, hey, for a lot of people like to throw out the term like, oh, we're going to red team, we're going to try and like break into your building, when in reality, we can do far more damage from the parking lot, from across the street, from some vantage point with a good antenna, and you never saw us on video. We didn't have to clone somebody's NFC, like badge or anything like anything
It's
like
the
that.
offensive mitigation, right? Like we can circumvent physical controls. Like that's the
and you'll never see us on camera. You'll never see anything, and we'll still have all of your nice things. And we'll talk more about the nice things that that wireless provides us to going forward. What is this slide?
Wi-Fi Fisher.
So this is just So I don't know if you guys are in the back, it might be a little bit hard to see, but really all this is just a screenshot of a tool that we use called Wi-Fi Fisher. Wi-Fi Fisher, all it really does is it scans up an access point. That could be very similar to whatever you're using in your corporate network, maybe what you're using at home. And all it does is it just clones your whatever access point, whatever ESSID or your wireless network that you want to have, with the sole intent of having me, an attacker, gain your credentials from you connecting to me. And so what you can see from this picture is that, hey, we've kicked a couple of people off of their home network, and they've now connected to us, and when they connect to us, it'll show a message that basically says, hey, we need your password in order to continue. Let me see that on the next slide. So for a normal user, this is what they would see. If they were on a Windows 10 machine, it would detect, hey, you're using Chrome on a Windows 10 device. So we're going to throw up a screen that looks something like a no network screen would look like. And so you can see this is all just in a web page, but it looks very similar to what an end user would see if they're on a Windows 10, laptop, desktop, whatever that may be. And if they type that credential in there, because this is all rendered in our browser, it's going to get sent to us in clear text. And the beautiful part about that is the second somebody hits that next button, we're going to get their clear text network password, and then our rogue access point is going to stop, and now we can just connect using that clear text key. So you could have a 64-character long password, but if you type it into that key, or if you're, if anybody in your corporate network were to type in that key, now we have that full access in clear text. We don't have to brute force. We don't have to spend any time trying to figure out what that is because one of your users just gave it to us. I don't know, Matt, if you want to say any more about that.
Nope.
Oh, next slide. So, rogue access points, everybody kind of looks at them and basically accuses them of oh, cool, you set up a rogue access point. but there's a lot of times that people don't really understand what the ability to detect rogue access points can really gain you and what we really use them for in a wireless pen test. There's been a ton of times where we've been on a pen test and they've had a super secure wireless network, but what's basically happened is somebody on their own personal device tries to log into a corporate, wireless access point that's actually ours, and we steal their credentials. And at the end of the day, what's happened is they've connected to our device from their personal device, and so there's no way, shape, or form that a company can really design a way to mitigate that from happening. They'll just end up giving us credentials, and maybe their wireless network requires certificates or something like that, but at the end of the day, if we're able to maybe use those across the VPN, Office 365, Azure, whatever that may be, they've given us credentials, and even if we can't use those to authenticate to their wireless network, we still have credentials, which is 9/10 the battle, really.
Taking a wireless test wired.
Yeah, exactly. And so from that, so if a workstation connects to us, we can compromise that workstation and then let it reconnect back to the corporate network. And when it reconnects back to the corporate network, well, now it's compromised, and now we have a compromised device in the wireless network, or just in your standard wired network, and you'll never detect it because at the end of the day, that is a corporate device that has been there, that has connected there, and now it has our piece of malware, it has our Cobalt Strike payload in there, it has whatever's there. And in the same vein, we can exfiltrate data that way. And we can also use it to really circumvent the corporate policies that people have in place. Just adding a wrong character, adding a space, adding, subtracting a character there will completely negate a lot of corporate policies that are put in place by mobile device management.
I'm hearing a lot of dropouts from Eric here. So what he was saying was basically, you can take anything that's wireless, right, and turn it into non-wired, right? We captured that stuff wirelessly from the parking lot. That's still meaningful, right? Sort of stick an asterisk on this slide because it's going to make a lot more sense in context once we sort of go forward in our talk and sort of talk about the things that the industry has done wrong in wireless testing to this point, and how we can address that stuff. No, you're good.
The other thing about this too is that even if you're not connected to a wireless network, even if you're, just sending traffic, there's a lot of information that devices give up. If you look at, a standard air dump, which is just a program that's used to look at wireless traffic, if you look at that, you can see the types of devices that are connected. You can see what networks they're connected to, and then you can basically define from that where devices are and the type of devices that are on the network. So when you look at this slide, it might be a little hard to see now when you get down the slides after the fact. But this is basically a Windows standard air dump interface. Air dump is a network interface that you can see wireless traffic, wireless devices connected to certain wireless networks. And from this, you can see, hey, here's a wireless network, and here's a given device connected to that wireless network. And why that matters is because if you were to look up that device on the network, what you see is that, hey, that MAC address, that's actually a Nest thermostat. And so you can know, hey, this is an IoT network, this is a home network. You can design attacks against devices that you already know are on that network. You never had to connect to it. This is all information that's being broadcasted out in clear text.
Now, will you jump to slide 14? I don't know. There we go. Yeah. So a character password, right? See that all the time. Hop one more, Eric. Yeah, so that's the basic build out of what we'll throw in our WRTAs, which is the box we can just drop ship to somebody to do a wireless test remotely. USRPs, Ubertooth, like what do you want to do? What's the scope of this gig, right? Pretty standard. We exfil over a PE. so we don't have to depend on client networks. We don't have to worry about, whitelisting, OVPN traffic, whatever. Next slide. That's the internals for a WRTA. You can see pretty typical, right? A couple of pies in a stack on the right center there. 2.4 gigahertz in center, right up the middle, and then a couple of pandas over on the left. There's power in there. We have a just USB power hub on the far right. Very typical stuff. We just put it in a smaller box. Next slide. Next again. So ePamer. Anybody in here watching this talk who does wireless pen testing, if you're not using ePamer, you should. Most of our corporate clients are running 802.1x enterprise wireless networks, right? Those are hard to configure. Got to get certs on everybody's device. Got to make sure that people aren't local admin. A lot of problems. Lots of things. ePamer basically automates all kinds of beautiful stuff for you. The developer Solstice with the eyes and C's and exclamation points, I don't know. This is an amazing tool. I think in 2019, I did about 20 wireless network tests. I wound up as domain admin on 16. 100% credit for that goes to the developer of this tool, right? You can basically type in, you get a nice little like CLI interface where you can mint certs, push those certs, do all kinds of crazy configuration stuff. You can serve payloads, right? So you want to serve like an SCF file or do SMB relay attacks. ePamer supports all of that. Really, what you should do is go to his GitHub page. If you just, ePamer Solstice GitHub, you'll wind up there. Give him some money because these tools are amazing. I think he just went to work for one of our competitors / confidants in the pentest space. I'm not going to name names, but I know he's working for somebody. This tool is amazing. Like, it takes all kinds of stuff that would take a lot of hard work for someone like me, who's basically a wireless incompetent, to configure and run manually, and I just type words in fields and everything is great. Yeah, if you're not messing with ePamer at the moment and you're doing wireless work, do yourself a favor and grab it and get comfy with it because it'll change your life. It's really good. And I think we have one more slide here, and at this point, we're kind of going to get to the interesting part of this talk, which focuses a whole bunch on all of the things that we've done wrong that have resulted in sort of an environment where people write off their wireless and say things like, "Oh, that's just our wireless network." Like, it's not really a big deal, except that it is, because it's a corporate wireless, right? Like, you can get to DCs just as quick from wireless as you can from wired, and you can do it from the parking lot. And really, sort of the interesting part of our talk, and I'm absolutely 100% stalling because Eric is doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my audio to work. Can you hear me still or no?
I cannot hear you.
Yeah, you're muted right now, Eric.
So I see the muted thing, but it won't let me unmute because it says I'm in the audience.
Yeah, it's okay. Let me take that real quick.
I think it's because you are in the audience. I can see you standing right in front of me on the bleachers. Smart.
Can you hear me now?
Unmuted.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I jumped in the audience and then Jack hopped on stage and I tried to fix it. I have no idea why.
So that slide that Eric's got up there is sort of the SDR box. So we'll throw a couple USRPs in there. That engagement's for clients where we're basically doing like a baseline survey of their wireless airspace. That door makes incredible noise when you open it. Yeah. Sorry, we're both kicking it COVID style in my house, 6 feet apart, which is bad for snuggles, but So that's the sort of groundwork for the real part of this talk. You have anything you want to throw in before we go on to?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, in the past year, 2 years, we've gone from, hey, if you want a Secureworks wireless test, what we're going to do is we're going to roll up on site with the amount of people that we have. If in the next, now if you were to have a wireless test, we can do it on any continent, including Antarctica, if we really wanted to, from these devices that we have that allow us to do, remote work. And so we send them to dangerous places. We send them to construction sites where, hey, we would have to have, 3 hours of safety training in order to even get access to this site. We've gone from having a site and now we all remotely, and
Sorry to interrupt. It's really hard to hear Eric right now.
ability, to have any one of our Secureworks consultants hop onto the network at any given point in time. So the power of the team is, hey,
You can't hear him at all.
wireless network.
Matt,
Maybe
get
I
his
don't know
attention. You
anything
can't hear him.
about safety. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, Eric, why don't you go stand right next to Matt's microphone and talk into his microphone. Mute yourself on this.
Oh, the snuggles are going through the roof right now. Oh my
I'm gonna-
God.
I'm
What are
gonna
you doing
mute
with
you.
your hand?
I'm muting you.
You can hear me okay.
There you go.
But
Do it.
basically, what this really gives us at the end of the day is the ability that.
That's inappropriate, Eric.
What?
What you're doing with your hand right now.
Oh, got it. So, what you get is the ability to, hey, compromise a wireless network. At that point in time, now if I'm trying to hop into a SAP system, any one of our SAP people, specifically Michael Howard, can device and basically compromise that entire piece of it. So I don't have to be an expert in everything.
Right.
I just give the guys that are good at what they, get at initial access and initial foothold into a network.
So we can bring a whole bunch of gangsters with us, basically,
That's
right?
really all it is.
Through the internet, we sent him a WTA. We got Mike Aguilar. Oh, cool! You got a whatever MRI device. Cool. I don't know anything about MRI devices, but Michael Aguilar does, and he's going to wreck your face, and he's going to do it on a wireless test. So we're significantly expanding and bringing reality to the real situation, right? And so that ability to, when I come onto your network to do a wireless test, if I'm attacking your AD, great, I will completely wreck your AD. Like, I know how that works. I'm old. I've done AD in real life. If I run into some crazy web app nonsense, some whatever DARPA, Treadwalker bullshit, I don't know how anything works in that space because I'm old. And so I don't have to know anymore because I have friends who do know. And all I have to do is piggyback them on top of my connection into your wireless network. And you're basically getting a wireless test from 70 dudes who all pen test all the time through, I'm sure you're all familiar with the marketing term like a single pane of glass, right? What we're doing is taking a single pane of glass and applying that to your wireless network. And people really aren't ready for that because they've spent the last decade talking about their wireless network access like the redheaded stepchild of their network. They're like, no, don't worry about it. It's just Wi-Fi. Nobody does anything important on Wi-Fi. Yeah, I was looking right at your character, Andre, when I said that, and I apologize, but I also don't. So, it really sort of takes the benefits of distributed wireless networks and turns it into a negative, right? Which is how the real world is going to work against you. If we can get creds from your parking lot, any physical access controls you have, oh cool, you have a security guard and a door card and all kinds of stuff, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. So, what we've done in the past is camped a network, started pushing certs from EPAMR. Anybody who accepts the cert, we wind up with creds, right? There's all kinds of interesting attacks there. So EAP downgrade, right? There's a million ways to get plaintext creds. We're currently working on changing the way we do tests from just plug the device in to no, plug the device in, give us creds, and we're going to test. We're going to try to fish creds from you. And if we successfully phish creds from you, then all of these findings in our report are going to have their typical severity ratings associated with them. If we don't phish creds, then everything's informational security. But you're not paying us, you know, whatever, X number of dollars per hour for 30 hours to sit there and watch a cred capture campaign happen. We're actually going to start testing on day one. I've done a ton of wireless tests. I can't tell you how many times I get creds late Friday morning. That's a nightmare, right? I've spent 30 hours on your network, I get creds Friday morning, and then I have 10 hours to execute a network pen test when I would normally have had 40 hours to do all that same work. So our sort of open to our clients is, no, look, you're going to provide us creds. If the creds don't work, and they shouldn't in a 802.11x environment, you're going to have certs on devices. So even if I have creds, I can't connect. Almost everybody fails to successfully implement 802.1x enterprise, WPA2 enterprise, right? They fail in a whole world of ways that are all really interesting. That isn't what matters. The fact is that if they failed, then I don't need a cert to connect, right? I can just connect with creds. And so closing the gap between we're going to spend 4 of your 5 days, or what, 32 of your 40 hours sitting, pushing, trying to push certs, trying to find access to your network, into, no, we have access to the network on day one. And we can start testing your wireless from day one. If your clients don't give up a cert, great, you're off the hook. Nothing is going to be high severity finding because we couldn't actually get creds in that timeline. But we were trying from hour one of day one to get connected to your network and can actually provide an assessment of your wireless network. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a day one first meeting with a client when I'm already on their network authenticated with user credentials, right? That is a nightmare scenario. Trying to get somebody who knows a little bit about what they're doing off your network. Secureworks has a huge IR presence. We do incident response professionally. We have a bunch of awesome people who go out and professionally help evict bad actors from networks. It's a nightmare. Like, even just typical user creds with all of the privilege escalation that's accessible on most of these networks, how often are you credentialed and not domain admin? Like,
well, and so my other part of this too is that if you look at the current external, like if you're trying to attack somebody from their public internet presence, when you look at that, like, people have firewalls,
Could
they
you
have
maybe do
logging
that
in place,
a little later?
they have two-factor authentication, they have
Could
all
you
of
just
the
wait
things that
a
they
little bit?
probably
This was
should
like the
have.
best talk of the
When
whole
you attack
whole
somebody's
day.
wireless,
Can you maybe
they
go
don't
back
detect
in the
if you
back?
have a rogue access point. They don't detect, even if you're doing some more advanced rogue access point, ways that you can kind of mitigate that if you're trying not to get captured. They can't even determine who's connected and who's not connected. So if you're able to compromise somebody's wireless network at that point, you're back to the 90s of early internet detection of firewalls and logging. Like, it's not existent. And what makes life even easier for a wireless pen tester is that a lot of times, you'll have companies, and what they'll do is they'll whitelist their own public-facing IP address from MFA. And what that means is that if you get on their
it means they don't have MFA.
Yeah, which means they don't have MFA, because if you get on their internal network, which you are because you're on their wireless network, now you have a username and password, and now you're not prompted for any MFA anywhere on that network, or in Azure, or in Office 365, or in AWS, because they've whitelisted it.
And how often do you have some bullshit conversation with a client who's like, oh, well, ATP detected something, and they send you a notification. You're on the red team, and you're like, oh, yeah, this is not what we're doing. But you kind of have to stop right? Because ATP caught you. You know how many times I've been stopped from notifications on a wireless controller? And like Meraki, like Ruckus, I don't care. It's literally never happened. Nobody has ever noticed my rogue AP. And I work with clients who are not, these are not like SMB clients. These are enterprise clients, and they don't even have monitoring in place on their wireless network, right? So, I don't know, I have a Ubiquity wireless network at my house. It's great, I love it. It's prosumer, whatever you want to call it. If you try to stand up a rogue AP at around my house and spoof one of my SSIDs, you're fucked, like immediately. I know immediately. I get 1,000 emails, and like, that's out of the box. I didn't do anything for that. Yet, enterprise wireless networks are basically undefended. They're not even, undefended is kind of giving benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Even if they're defended, nobody gets those notifications, right?
It's a wall without the Night's Watch. Like, you have a wall there, but if you can scale that wall, get over the wall, go under the wall, go through the wall, nobody's there watching the logs. And once you get on the other side of that wall, you're now internal on a corporate network. And I mean, you all know what that means, right? If you're internal on a corporate network, the amount of steps that you have to go to get to full compromise are fairly small, depending on what type of
Right, just curbs and it's over.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not a whole lot, but the advantage that it gives you as an attacker is the point that you never had to get on a camera. You never had to, clone somebody's
You bypass all the physical access.
Yeah, there's no point. And I've had clients ask me like, hey, well, are you going to build out a wireless map of how far our Wi-Fi extends past our building? And it's like, well, do you want me to make that with an iPhone? Because an iPhone, you can maybe get it, across the street. But if you have a directional, Yagi antenna or dish antenna, I could get it from my hotel building that's, maybe 300-400 yards away.
I ate some Pringles, so I could get there from far away now.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the other part of this too, is that you're extending a secure corporate environment to pretty much a 300 to 500 meter radius around any of your buildings or any of your assets that you can control.
So what's the end game here, right? The end game is that Eric and I are assuming a lot of people attending this talk or this conference in general probably are doing pentest work in some capacity. Quit pretending like you won't get creds. Ask for creds. If you have 30 days to farm a place for credentials over wireless, you will get them, right? You know that. We know that. Providing, if we can stand up sort of a unified front to force corporate clients who want to pretend like the timeline is the thing that allows them to pass a pen test. This is the oldest fight in pen testing. I'm supposed to emulate a nation state in a week. Okay, first of all, if I was emulating a nation state, I wouldn't get a week, I would get a year. Do you think I'm not going to be able to successfully find your user with his Android 7 phone who's just going to GTC upgrade me plain text creds? Because I will, every single time. Everybody should be doing wireless this way. We should ask for creds. We should test the wireless network. We shouldn't spend hours and hours of our time and thousands of dollars of client money on a nonsense argument about whether or not we can phish credentials, right? It's a stupid waste of time and waste of money. For our clients, they're spending 60 grand for a 2-week pen test, right? We're gonna spend 12 of those days trying to phish credentials when we all know that credential compromise is inevitable. Like, wireless is janky. I have a nice network at my house. You heard Eric trying to talk on it. It's janky. Like, This is not some bullshit Comcast home network. I have a very nice home network. And yet, Eric can't get his Apple bullshit things to work. Like, I blame Eric because he's a sheeple, but he's really, really smart. Ask for creds, okay? Start day one with creds. If your client has concerns about giving you credentials, talk to them about the fact that I don't understand why you're concerned about giving me credentials when we can both acknowledge that over the course of a year, I could get them. If your 8021X environment is properly instantiated and you have per user certificates deployed to every single box on your wireless network and nobody is a local admin, you have nothing to worry about. All of these are going to be informational findings. But even informational findings is value for clients, and they're going to push back. I had a client recently who was like, oh, well, you found this .xls doc that had the salaries for all of our CEOs on it, and you put that in a pen test report and you redacted a bunch of information, right? Great, cool. And then proceeded to get completely bent out of shape that their point of contact now knew, within reason, was able to infer the salary of their CEO. It's like, oh, did you not, your last pen test was with a shop who ran a Nessus scan and called it a pen test? Great, cool. Here's the deal. Everybody with access to that share knew your CEO's salary. And it's the same thing for wireless. Ask for creds at the beginning. Explain. We know enough about wireless to ask for creds and be able to explain, we're gonna get them, right? If you have a shitty password policy, we're gonna get net NTLMs and we're gonna crack them. If you have really old devices or users who are local admins, we're gonna wind up GTC and downgrade and we won't even need to crack them because they'll be plain text. Thank you, EPAMR. Like, pretending, getting in the pretend boat of make-believe with your clients is not helping them anymore, right? We're gonna start taking a stand on this and asking for creds for wireless pen tests, period, every time going forward. And we're gonna explain, you know what? Look, I know you're worried about high and critical severity findings from your pen test. If we can't get creds, these will all be informational. If we can, then they're all what they would be. And instead of starting on Friday at 11, we're gonna start on Monday at 9. And that's good for you because you're paying us a lot of money to do a pen test for you. You came to a shop who has an established record of doing really good work. We want to continue doing that work. Here's how we do it and here's why. And if the industry can put forth a unified front on this and stop pretending that, like, oh, it's just wireless. Like, that's a bullshit thing.
And that's the dangerous piece of this, right? Is that a lot of the times we have clients that are like, oh, we're kind of going on the fringe and doing a wireless pen test. When in reality, their wireless pen test is just their corporate network that they're broadcasting to the entire world. And that's what's a little frightening on all of this is there's no detection, no logging, no email addresses that even plumb up to any detection if it is in place. And everybody thinks that wireless is a fringe, wireless pen test is kind of a fringe thing. When at the end of the day, it's your corporate wireless network that extends far past your building, far past any controls or any security that's not even logged, not even monitored. And so what do you get out of that if you're an attacker? That's the perfect place to insert yourself to be able to steal information, steal credentials, steal corporate secrets, whatever your corporate secrets are that keep you awake at night, whatever your crown jewels are. Those are the things that an attacker can get without ever being caught from a distance that they'll never be seen coming.
And like, right, so then it becomes a wireless pen test is just an internal pen test where we don't plug in. And that's really what it should be, what it should have always been. My most used findings on wireless pen tests are implement IDS, IPS for your wireless. And all of these clients come back and they're like, well, we already have this. And it's like, do you? Because I own the whole place from your parking lot, and nobody stopped me or noticed. Like, maybe look at the logs that your Meraki, that your $50,000 Meraki configuration is sending you, and do something about it, right? As long as wireless lives in this place of like, oh, well, we don't really have to think about it because it's just, you know, the like illegal immigrant of network. Like it's I don't know how, I have this epiphany regularly on pentests, whether they're wired or wireless, it doesn't matter. Where I'm like, man, I don't know anything, and I own this whole place, and it's 11 o'clock on Monday, and I'm gonna be a professional whatever I do for the rest of the week, because I own everything already. Like, it's time to at least bring wireless into the fray of like, oh, so really when you say it's just the Wi-Fi, what you mean is it's just access to our corporate DCs and crown jewels without having to go through all of our access controls that we have in place. And all you have to do is say that one time with a client, and all of a sudden it's night and day. They're like, whoa, I don't really know how I've stood up this straw man argument of, oh, it's just the corporate wireless for this long. Wireless, APLS is an acronym that I invented because it sounds like apples, and it's the attacker in the parking lot scenario. And it's what corporate clients should be worried about. They have some crazy bullshit, like somebody else's problem fields erected around their wireless networks, and it's bullshit. And if we're not telling them it's bullshit, we're as complacent as they are in this mix. We need to stop pretending that their wireless can't get to their DCs and can't get to their SAGE ERPs and can't get to their DB2 interfaces. Like, if
Can't get to their SCADA environment. Everything's
Yeah.
air-gapped. Like, it's air... Yeah.
like we've had multiple tests between us, Eric and I, where we're doing a wireless test in conjunction with a red team. And we own the whole place, and the red team gets booted because nobody's looking at their logs. Like, I love all of your little tiny VR faces. Gosh, you're so cute. It's dumb. Like, wireless pen testing is easier than being plugged into the local network 90% of the time. I did 20 tests last year. I'm domain administrator. I'm 42 years old. I don't know anything. You can ask anybody who you know who works for Secureworks who's the most incompetent person on our team, and it's me every time. I can write a report and I can talk on a phone, and I'm 85% domain admin on wireless tests. Like, that's terrifying. I don't know how anything works. I have Solstice with EPAMR and Eric with all of his things and Mr. X with Aircrack. Like, I can figure out syntactical arguments. Like, if that's the threshold for what it takes to own a wireless network, then we should start ensuring that our clients' wireless networks can't do anything important.
Because really all it takes at the end of the day is somebody to lose a laptop, somebody to get phished, and somebody give up creds, and now there's no, like, yeah, all it comes down to is there's no MFA, there's no logging, there's no anything. We have access from the parking lot, we have Apple's access, and...
Apples. Mic drop that apples.
and like that's it. And it sounds like we're on a soapbox because we are, because we've broken into clients that say we have detection, we should have seen you coming, and we walked straight in the door and took everything from them. And it really is a decade behind the public internet scene. Like it's that
Wi-Fi is still listening to Nirvana. Yeah. Truth.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, we are on a soapbox, and at the end of the day, it's for a reason. We want to have nice corporate secure network. I don't want to ever hop on a Wi-Fi network and think, oh geez, I shouldn't do anything important on this. And people think that WPA3 is going to be the answer to all of this. But at the end of the day, WPA3 has to be consistent in backwards compatible WPA2, which means a lot of the attacks that work in WPA2 also work in WPA3 because it has to be backwards compatible. Because people still have thermostats, people still have IoT, people still have webcams that all need...
People still have all of their wireless IDS and IPS set to block. It's spam.
Yeah, and yeah, at the end of the day, when we send these devices to other places, the second that we gain access, you don't just let Matt and I into your corporate network. You let a bunch of guys that actually know what they're doing.
Aguilar and Beltman and Viet.
Jared, like you let
bunch of nightmares.
Yeah, any one of them is a nation state.
Real hackers.
Yeah, you let those guys in. All we're doing is just holding the door open and just escorting them in and ushering them in. And after that, they hand it off to their C2s hosted in...
We're basically baristas.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That is the perfect...
Would you like a ham, egg, and cheese with your domain admin access?
And yeah, that's... Boom, done.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything else. I'm totally happy to
yeah, if you guys have questions...
keep getting Eric Snuggles on questions. If you guys have any.
All right. Let me go ahead and open up the questions. If anybody has anything, go ahead. Here we go. Got 3 questions already. We got X Jagger. Go for it.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go.
Yes.
There you go.
How's the heat out of that box? I saw you had some fans in there. Do you have any issues with overheating?
Hey.
So funny story. Eric initially came to me with all that shit in like an ammo can. And he was like, "Oh, dude, it works." And I was like, "Shut up." Because I push back on shit. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm cynical. So I threw it off my balcony, and it broke open into a million pieces. And I was like, fuck, man. This isn't going to work. So we put it in a pistol case. We bought 3D printers. We started printing a bunch of shit. Things got better. With the Pis, as long as you're using Pi 3s and not Pi 4s, we're good. If you start throwing in Pi 4s or SDRs, that's when I gave all of this back to Eric and was basically like, fuck this is your problem now. And yeah, so there's fans now.
So the one that you see at the end, let me go back to this slide one more. So this one at the end is our newer edition. This one does full software-defined radio. Like you can hijack people's mice with this. You could like hijack people's microphones at conferences with this. Like you could talk to a satellite with this. I mean,
it's a USRP.
Yeah, it's a
B210.
full like, yeah, it's a B210. Like you could emulate a cell tower with the hardware in here. So because of that, it requires actual ventilation and actual
so it's like push
like active
fans.
active airflow through that case because it's not just doing Wi-Fi. Like you could legitimately talk to somebody on the International Space Station or something like this. And so that's really what this is. It's the more beefier version for some of our clients that do stuff outside of just standard Wi-Fi. But yeah, that's why this one has airflow through it. Our standard devices, like Matt said, they're all based on Pi 3s, not Pi 4s. So just being solid state and not just doing passive cooling is totally good enough. And there's no batteries.
We've contemplated in the past finding a client who is willing to sort of let us get a little crazy on their network with just drop shipping them one via FedEx. Because my guess is that a FedEx package for somebody who's on vacation for 2 months is probably just going to sit at the front desk.
Or if they're stuck at home working from home because of coronavirus.
Right. Yeah. Even more apt. But we haven't had anybody accept that offer yet.
All right, I got one more, I think, is all we got probably time for here. I'm going to go with Fubar. Fubar, you're on.
All right. Would you recommend that companies Faraday cage their Wi-Fi, or would that just be putting a Band-Aid on the problem due to the misconfigurations?
No. We recommend that they configure it right and find a way to get the regular Meraki generated wireless alerts. Like a Faraday cage would totally work, but
not be useful.
yeah, I mean, That's like wearing body armor to the laser tag place. Like, yeah, it probably would keep you from getting tagged, but there's controls. Just you can't have local admin users. BYOD networks are hard. You better segment that shit. That's our recommendation. Keep networks you can't trust in a segment where you keep all your other untrusted devices.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and just open it up. Turn off the raise hand thing. But yeah, everybody give them all the emojis. Give them some love.
So many bubble sounds. Woo!